Hey guys, it's Laura, and you're about to watch my interview with Josh Lovelace from Need to Breathe, a band I will happily admit are one of my favourites as they combine this kind of rock and roll style with a bit of country, a bit of inspirational ideas in their lyrics, and they've been doing it for such a long time. They're Grammy nominated, and I think they're so unique in the way they tell stories in the music that they create. And in this chat, Josh really shares what his perspective is and what the band's perspective is on the ideas of success, purpose, calling, what's changed most for them over the years that they've been doing this thing that he really calls a job, but also recognises there's so much artistry too. And I do ask him a little bit about the pressures that bands face, particularly in this day and age, I think, to really comment on cultural changes, shifts, and kind of hold this mirror up to the world and inspire conversation in us about some of the big things going on around us. So I really hope you enjoy it. And much like our other guests on Undistracted, I do ask Josh his thoughts on these ideas of purpose, calling, what it means to him to be chasing after the things that he feels passionate about, and how he makes sure being a husband and being a dad isn't something that feels like a distraction from that. So I hope you enjoy.
Yeah, I think, I think it's changed a lot over the years. I'm in my mid-30s now, and so I've got two little kids. They're running around like crazy all the time, and I can get in my own head sometimes and kind of think that my world kind of revolves around myself. But then I kind of realize how much my kids are looking at me and just like looking for an example and how to go. So I think as I've gotten a little bit older, I think I'm realizing more and more that my purpose and calling is less about me and more about others, including my kids, whether that means just to knowing that not everybody's having a great day when you run into them wherever you're at, and that everybody's doing life the best they can, and to give kind of some grace and some just some forgiveness, or just up front knowing that everybody's kind of got something that they're carrying around. So I think for me has been at least lately in my life, I guess, as a just something that I keep at the back of my head, just to know that that it's definitely not about me, and to try to put others first in that way.
So for you, what are the things that when you're doing, you really feel like this is you in your lane, doing the thing that really switches you on and gives you a sense of focus and passion?
Yeah, there's different things. For me, I've always loved, being a musician. I definitely think that sometimes you can get caught up in like music is your job and you don't love it anymore. I still really enjoy it. So like I love going to, record shops and buying obscure vinyl and stuff that I've never really heard of, just kind of for the experience of going home and, just putting it on and seeing what kind of things kind of pop out at me. I love media. I love movies and all that stuff. So, I feel like I am in tune with myself when I can tune out myself, if that makes any sense, and able to just kind of get lost in a song or a story, and then reflect on it and kind of figure out how I can kind of, make that apply to me, and whether it's to write another song that that inspires that, or to take a story and let that inspire me as well. So I definitely think that for me, I find myself coming alive when I'm inspired by that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of artists, musicians, whatever space it might be that you're in, there can be this really fine line between being inspired by art or other people's records, and then that kind of subtly influencing what you create, or maybe even appearing in a way in the work that you do. So how do you make sure that what you do stays pure and stays about you and isn't too heavily influenced by all these other things that you experience and consume?
Yeah, I think for me, I kind of think of it as like a toolbox. So I'm like grabbing different tools and putting it in the toolbox, whether it's, if I'm listening to music and something inspires me and makes me think of like, what would I actually, funny enough, in my kitchen at my studio, I have a sign over the door that says, "What would Tom Petty do?" And just to kind of keep me in check on, wearing your heart on your sleeve and also that kind of thing. So there's definitely influences in that way.
Mm.
But I think because I try to listen to as much music or, be inspired by different things and not allow myself to get too tunnel vision with one thing. Everything is going to come out in some ways original in that way. I might
Mm.
be inspired by Tom Petty, but I might have seen a movie that makes me think of something that I don't know, takes me down a whole other rabbit trail and into maybe a classical thing. And so, I've never heard a Tom Petty classical record. So then it's like, maybe there's something there. So that's kind of my thought process. But like I said, I'm just a fan of a lot of different things, which helps me, I think,
Mm.
to not get stuck in one spot.
Yeah, yeah. You can be the one to create that classical Tom Petty album. I would listen. I think so many other people would as well. But
I know.
a lot of people, of course, we love and we listen to what you do with Need to Breathe. And you guys I love your music in the way that you're able to bring so much story and so much kind of life experience into the songs that you write. What is the kind of music or the kind of stories that you really like to tell in music that you think brings value to you guys as creatives, but then also to the listener as well?
I think that for our band, as long as I've been around, we've always um, kept ourselves in check by saying, "Is what we're saying honest in its delivery?" And that kind of gives us kind of like free reign to kind of skip around different topics, whether that's you want to write a song about your wife or your kids or your faith or whatever it is that it inspires us at the time, or a lady walking down the street. It's like, what's the honest approach to that subject, and how can we say it in a way that's not tiptoeing around it,
Mm.
but also is saying it in a way that hopefully is just a different perspective of it. I've always loved, Bear, for years, and Bo, both of them as songwriters in the past have written songs that just put you in a place that um, you're just thinking of it in a totally different way. And I've
Mm.
always loved that. You can see, you can look outside and look at a tree and say, well, that tree is green, but how can we make it? It's definitely green, but how can we turn it on its head to where you just don't see it coming? It's just kind of like
Mm.
a good movie or something. It's like, oh, like The Sixth Sense or something. Like
There's always a
Bruce
twist.
Willis was dead the whole time. But I think that's kind of the goal is how can we be honest and catch you from note one, but also like listen 3 or 4, you're like, oh man, I totally get it now. That I
Mm.
think that's the challenge, but it's also the thing that I think we love the most about what we get to do creatively and songwriting and all that.
Mm. Well, it means you can't really be boxed in because you guys don't
Mhm.
write to any kind of box. You just write to who you guys are and the sounds that mean a lot to you guys. But I noticed that for Bear, he's got his independent project with Wilder Woods. You also write in a
Mhm.
solo capacity as well. How come
Mhm.
you guys needed that space to create outside of what you do as a band as well?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I can speak for myself and say that I felt like I needed to challenge myself, um, in an independent way. I kind of like I think when you're in a band, you lean on each other so much to make whatever art you're making and take it to the finish line. And you're just like looking at each other like, we can do this together. But when you do it on your own, you definitely have to do it all. And I kind of like that challenge of it. My music was I wanted to write songs for kids and for families, and so I think that I guess my inspiration was I want to add to that conversation
Mm.
as much as I could. Just as I started having kids, I was like, I think there's some things that we can talk about in kids music that is a different color palette than maybe just red, yellow, and green or whatever.
Yeah.
I wanted to go a little deeper with that. So I think that for me was important. And also we just always go through different phases and seasons as a band. And, sometimes you walk into a room and you're just so excited to be there. And then sometimes you're like, man, I need a break from
Mm.
this. I appreciate it, but I just need a break. And I think that we've all been in those situations and those seasons. So Yeah, for me, I needed it, but now it made me better for what I do with the band. I think I'm able
Mm.
to take those strengths and hopefully add to our conversation a little bit.
Yeah, and maybe that's one of the evolutions that the band has gone through, in that each of you guys can have your own space to create and to grow individually as well as what you do together. Because I heard someone say their worst moment of 2020 was when Bo decided to step away from Need to Breathe, which, if that's true, I mean, that's not bad as far as 2020 goes for that to be the worst thing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what is he up to now?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's trying to, figure it out, as we all are. It's just, 2020 was such a crazy year for everybody, and going through a global pandemic, and our last tour was May. I think our last tour date was May of 2019. Before we've done a couple of things here and there, so I think we're all just trying to, figure out what it is that the things that we want to say. And I know for me, like being home with my kids is like, I'm just like, I'm ready to go on tour, but at the same time, I'm like, man, it's been so awesome to be home with family and
Mm.
seeing my kids grow up. I've got a 7 and a 4-year-old, so it's like it's such a good time. So I think for all of us, it's that time where we're like, man, how can we be creative and do what we do, whether it's writing songs or painting or whatever it is, and love our kids and our family well,
Mm.
and still do the thing that we like to do. So yeah, I feel like we're all still trying to figure out what that looks like. So
Yeah, yeah, and have that reset that so many of us have experienced, I think, in different ways.
yeah.
But you mentioned, the times where it's been difficult to do what you do, and for longtime fans of the band, they'll know, particularly with the brotherhood between Bo and Bear, there was tensions there, and it brought about a beautiful song with Brother and everything that went around that. But in those seasons where things are really difficult and where you've got the kind of fun and amazingness of being in this Grammy nominated band, on the days where that's so difficult, how do you deal with that when in some ways you kind of quote unquote should be enjoying the
Mhm.
excitement of it all?
Yeah, I think like different seasons have we've done it better than than some. I mean, I think when Brother came out, I feel like we were in a spot in our band where we were able to stand on stage and say, man, we've made a lot of mistakes, and here we are, and we're still here. And I feel like that's kind of how we've always been. We don't always, with any job, I think you can't love it every day. But I do think that what we get to do is so unique, because if there's some jobs that you go in and you work and then you go home and you're like, I don't know if what I did mattered to
Hmm.
anybody. Maybe I've got money in my pocket that I can put food on the table, and while that's great, it just you sometimes it's hard to like figure out how to keep going. We're just so fortunate in our job, and as musicians, and being in a band like us. I mean, we're kind of we kid ourselves and say we're like an inspirational band. We just like we love that we can write songs that make people want to be better or do better, or if we can write a song that helps you walk through a really hard time in your life. I mean, how much better does it get? I don't know if
Mm.
it can. So in those times when it's tough and when you don't enjoy it, I feel like we can make a pretty quick 180 on those feelings, knowing that people are just like really living to the music. And I just don't know, as a fan of bands and the fans of music for a long time, I know that there are some great bands out there, but I also know, as a fan of those bands, I'm not living my life to
Mm.
some of the songs like that. Which, so I feel like for us as a band, that's pretty rare, and something that does keep us going and makes us just really lucky and happy to be doing what we do.
Mm. And it's probably people living to the music. It's probably something that comes because you guys are really honest in what you share. And as I said before, you're not boxing yourself. So the inspiration that you bring, it's not like this cookie cutter picture of what inspiration has to mean. It's like this
Hmm.
fun rock and roll thing. And then sometimes in a song like Banks, for instance, it's really
Hmm.
intimate and really personal. And so that range, I think, gives you the ability to inspire people and live with them in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think for us, like, we also love the idea that we could be just hopefully a good like live band, like a rock band. So, maybe it's a lyric that gets you through the day, but maybe it's just an experience of getting to go to a show and let it go for a little bit, let it go for an hour and a half or 2 hours, and just listen to music and watch other people around you and just kind of feel alive for a little bit. I
Mm,
think that is something that as musicians in the band, we've missed that definitely for the last
yeah.
year and a half of not being able to look out and see people responding to what it is that's happening in the moment.
Mm,
But I do think that we're just, it's a very unique situation when you can write a song that hits somebody in like 10 different ways. And then they can come live and it hits them in an 11th different way.
yeah.
I think that's pretty cool. And yeah, we don't take that for granted for sure.
It is really special. And in the middle of it all, though, there's kind of this pressure that I think, I mean, maybe you don't feel it inside the band, but outside, there's a lot of pressure put on musicians and artists to reflect culture or to tell the story of what's important in the time, in the moment, and really capture that. Do you guys ever talk about that or kind of feel that this idea that you guys are meant to be a mirror to what's happening in society as artists?
hmm somewhat. I mean, I feel like we definitely talk about it, but as far as just like we've always wanted to make timeless records, I guess is which is kind of interesting. So we'll write a record or write a song, and one thing we love about music that kind of we grew up on, some of it definitely has a timestamp on it, and then some of it you could put it out in 2021 and it's still as relevant today. So
Mm.
we've always tried to be that way in some way. So we'll put out, The Outsiders came out in 2009, I guess. And if it came out today, somebody that's feeling a certain way, or, they want to, have the tattoo on their sleeve that says, "We are the Outsiders." It could still apply or
Mm.
whatever, So I think that is something we've always, we've wanted to do. And I also think that, we are very fortunate that people use our songs and give life and meaning to the things that they're walking through, or things that is happening in the world all around them. So I definitely think that there's a space for that, and I mean, we're blown away by anybody that would take our songs and use them for anything. I mean,
Mm.
we get it all. I mean, we've had it on WWF wrestling, and
That's
we've had
great.
on Grey's Anatomy, and then but then we've had it on we've had a song called Difference Maker, and it people are using it to inspire change. And so
Mm.
for us, I think anywhere we can hear our song and people take it and they are using it and they love it, we're down with it.
Yeah,
Even
yeah.
wrestling, we're
So
fine.
that's got to be the epitome of success right there, having it used in that way. But
Maybe.
it's
There you
important
go.
to prioritize, I suppose, a timelessness over social commentary
hmm
sometimes.
hmm
But the other thing that you get for you personally, maybe you can answer to your own experiences, but that kind of critique that can come with creativity and the way that people talk about the work that you do or the expectations they place on it. How do you keep a sense of who you are individually in the face of all that critique? Because I'm sure there's some people that try and create their music or shape their story to fit what the critics are looking for or saying that people want from them.
hmm Yeah, for me, I kind of look at it as a challenge in some ways. So, like if I feel that people might not like something, or there's like a little bit of a rub about it, or I kind of look at it and say they're gonna get it. Like let's just play the long game and be patient. And I feel like our band's always been that way. I mean, thinking back to the Outsiders, we put a banjo as literally the first strum of the record is a banjo. And
Mm.
at that time, there was no Mumford and Sons, there was no Old Crow Medicine Show, and the label was like, "This is not going to work. This is definitely not going to work." And we did it, and we're still playing it in 2021. So
Mm.
I think in some ways, we try not to read as much of the critics. We try not to look too much into it, just because. I mean, after as many years as we've been doing it, we know how it can get you down if you're trying to please somebody and they just don't get it.
Mm.
So we just in our head, I think we just keep our head down and be like, they're going to get it. It may take them 10 years, but they're going to hopefully get it, hopefully get it. And so far it's worked. We've had some misses for sure that we're like, oh, why did we do that? But at the end of the day, you can't win them all. So.
No, and so long as the fans love it, because they're the ones, we're the ones buying the tickets, coming to the shows, and that's got to matter more. I remember actually, it's got to be a couple of years ago now, Bear telling this story at Red Rocks in Colorado about catching an Uber there and saying that he was going to play, and drivers asking him, who are you opening for? Having no clue that people would come to a sold out Need to Breathe show.
Totally. No, totally. That happens all the time. It's really funny how, I had to go to the doctor for a checkup the other day, and the nurse was like, so what do you do? And I was like, I'm in a band. And she's like, oh, cool. What kind of band? I was like, it's kind of rock and roll. And they're like, is it country? And I'm like, well, no, kind of. And I'm like, well, have you ever met Taylor Swift? I was like, yeah. Then they're like, have you met Carrie Underwood? I was like, yeah, we just did a song with her. She's like, you did a song with I was like, we've been doing this for a long time. Please recognize that we're really, really doing it, please. But people just they don't know. And in some ways it's kind of awesome, because you can just let people do their thing. And we think it's just funny. So,
and honestly, the lasting consistency of what you guys has done, I think, is probably a testament and maybe even, a stronger way to be doing what you guys are doing. But with that success and achieving any level of success, whether it is people recognizing you on billboards or not, success can be something that is really difficult to actually experience. And some people, there's this thing of, self-sabotaging yourself so that you never experience success because it's scary to get there. What's your mentality or your approach to the idea of success?
Yeah, I think that's changed over the years. When I first joined the band, I think we were all in a place that we would have cut off our left arm to be successful. We just do it and figured out how to make it. I remember when my first year with the band, I think we did 150 shows in 6 months or something. It was a lot of shows. I got married on that tour, and it was just we can't sustain this. This is not going to happen. And over time, I think as we've had kids and gotten older, we've realized that success is for us has been the long game. We can't really look at many things and say that was the thing that made us successful, or that was the thing that got us to be the band we are today. It's been a lot of really little things, which is actually really nice, because we're not the kind of band that had a big hit and we're still chasing that hit, and then we just kind of slowly decline. We're very fortunate that everything that we've done up to this point, there's not been something that's the big thing that so for us, success is kind of getting up in the morning and making coffee and getting to work. And, I think that's good. And it's probably the reason why we're still doing it now, and we're not burnt out. And, I think we've had seasons like that, but then we kind of look at it and be like, well, what are we actually doing with our time? And how are we being, productive? And how's our mental health and all that? And usually when we do that check-in, it's like, oh, we shouldn't be doing this and this, but we should be doing this and this. And then we kind of get back on track. So I do think for right now, I feel like we feel, we're thrilled that the band's still, a big deal to a lot of people. But I think we're all looking at each other like, all right, what's the next thing that we're going to do and keep going to hopefully do this thing when we're 80. I don't know if that's going to work. I don't know if my wife probably won't let me wear tight jeans when I'm 80, but we'll see. We'll see if we make it that long.
Yeah, look, we'll still be there watching, whether you have to have the fake teeth dentures going on and you're all there with a walking stick to lean on as you play it. We'll watch. It'll be thoroughly entertaining. But
definitely will be entertaining.
but I genuinely think it's more impressive to have consistent or at least enduring success. Now it's kind of a cheaper word, I suppose, but to still be going and to still be creating and to still be finding satisfaction, I think, is probably what I mean by success is really impressive in later life? Because so many people, like you say, do kind of peter out and just kind of stop. So I think it's important. But as you've mentioned, you're doing this alongside family, and that's the same for so many others in the band as well. How do you not view family as something that distracts or is kind of next to what you're doing professionally? Because for a lot of people, I think that's the way they can think about it sometimes. Like, I've got my dream and I've got the thing I want to do, and then I've got my family and everything else. How do you not separate the two like that?
It's difficult, to be honest. I feel like, especially the last year or so, I think when COVID first came on the scene, I think for the first 3 months, I was very, very depressed. I was in a pretty dark space because I just kind of woke up every day. And as much as I was so thankful to be with my family and have health, I kept just waking up and being like, are we relevant anymore? Are they going to forget about us? Or am I going to, am I going to ever get to play music again? Or, all that stuff kind of creeps in, and it's funny because in those times, I don't think it's an accident. I think it's crazy how it all happens. But being at home kind of gave me like the energy boost that I needed to kind of realize that all the music and all the touring and all that stuff will go away, definitely someday. Maybe when we're 80, but maybe when we're 40. I don't know. So, but the thing that we can kind of control is the legacy that we're leaving behind with our families. And I feel like so lucky to have a wife that's very supportive. She still likes the band, likes listening to the music. There's a couple of songs that when she comes on tour, she's like, well, there's my bathroom break song, I gotta go. So she has a couple. I'm not gonna say which ones, but they're hits. But
I really want to know now.
Well, every time Something Beautiful comes on, she's like, oh, it's not my time. She's heard it a couple of times. But it's just for me and having kids. We did a couple shows earlier this year, like socially distant shows outside, and my kids got to come. My son remembers, me doing this, but my daughter just turned 4, and so for the last year and a half, she's like, "What does Daddy do for a job?" She's not sure. So she got to come and they just for them to see what I do kind of definitely gives me perspective and purpose of why I can continue doing it. Is it's for them and for the for when I play my last note, they're going to hopefully still be right there. And that to me is the most important thing, whether we ever go to that next level, whatever the next level is. As long as I'm keeping my family in check, I feel like that is success, at least to me. So
yeah, it's a beautiful picture that you paint. And the next album that we're going to hear from you guys is one called Into the Mystery. As we kind of wrap up our time together now, what can people expect on that, and what's the focus with the music there?
I really do feel like it's one of the best records we've ever made as a band. And we kid around and say, I don't know if people will like it, but we had the most fun making it. But I really do believe that it's honest. I think that, for us, we wanted to do something different. So we all went to a house and lived there for almost a month, just us and an engineer, and came in and recorded about, I think it was 12 songs altogether. And we walked away, just thinking, wow, that was such a fun experience for us. But also we had some really intentional and difficult, but encouraging conversations. I mean, we'd sit around the fire and talk about life and our kids and what happens when we get old. And just so many different things that, when you're touring or you're doing press and you're doing all this stuff, you forget to sit and talk to people and how are you doing? Really, how are you doing? I can see you on stage playing guitar, but do you still love this or not? So I feel like we got to have all those conversations, a lot of those conversations, and had breakfast together, and it was just a really fun time for us. And We filmed it all, which is awesome. So we had a camera crew that were great and fun to hang out with. So never felt weird, or which could have been, it could have been not that. It could have been, let's put on our best, our best faces because we're on camera. But really, we just all hung out and just I really do believe in the record. I think that there's a lot for people that are walking in different parts of their life. It's talking about getting older, but it's also talking about when we were young. It's just, I think there's a lot of good stuff in there that I hope people will take the time and listen and just kind of continue on the Need to Breathe journey with us with some new songs. We're really excited about it.
Yeah, you're capturing a really great transitional moment in your lives and probably the lives of a lot of your fans too. But Josh, it has meant so much to be able to have you on the podcast. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Let's do it again real soon. Hopefully not when I'm 80. Let's do it before then.
Thanks for watching my chat with Josh Lovelace here on Undistracted. The fact that you made it to this point probably means you want to hear more of what we do in this podcast, on this show. So make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you don't miss an episode. And of course, you can listen to the audio episodes wherever you find your podcast. So make sure you subscribe there as well, or check out hopepodcast.com.au. We'll see you next time on Undistracted.